If somebody had told me that that was like something that I needed to do at an earlier age, that I would have spent a lot more time like thinking about that and the different steps and progressions in my career.
This is Boss Ladies. All right. Well, I am so excited. I'm here with Jennifer DaSilva today. She is a seasoned integrated marketer with nearly 20 years of experience working on Fortune 500 brands. She's a master connector, which we'll learn more about. She has championed a division recently of Berlin Cameron called LLShe, which empowers female founders through creativity and connection, and has spoken at many industry events on female leadership and entrepreneurship. She started Connect for Women and so much more, which we're going to get into today. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. We are so excited to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. So can you start by just telling us a little bit, about yourself and sort of your career journey that led you to your current role as president of Berlin Cameron?
Sure. I actually came from the West Coast to Boston College and really loved the marketing world, but had no idea I wanted to do advertising at the time, and got placed in an amazing internship at this company called the Intuition Group, which was all about marketing to women's. And it was a part of J. Walter Thompson and WPP. So it was kind of my first foray in the world that I am now, and actually, am in now with a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. And it was great. I loved it. We worked on Clairol. We were thinking about kind of the natural products and infusing them into the hair dye. And I got to get in front of clients, and I got to think about women all the time. It was huge, a huge win. And I decided that I wanted to go back. They hired me out of school. And the day before my internship called, they said, my job started. They said, hey, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but actually the Intuition Group has been disbanded. And
oh, no.
I know, I was so disappointed for a heartbeat. And then they said, but don't worry, we found a place for you at J. Walter Thompson. And I was going to be working on Trident and Halls. It was Warner Lambert at the time. And really disappointing in terms of that I wouldn't be getting to think about women all the time like I was at the Intuition Group, but I had a great foundation in CPG, which is a really great way to start in advertising. And I loved it there. It had the best kind of professional development program. We were, all a unit and starting together. So it was a great way to start. Yeah. So that's how I began my career, is thinking about women. And that's where I love my career to go. And since then, I actually followed a boss of mine from JWT to British Airways, and working at an agency called M&C Saatchi, which was my first time working at a boutique agency. And I absolutely loved it. We got to travel. We got to think about what it meant to fly across the Atlantic to London. And at the time, we did an Effie award-winning campaign about waking up in Trafalgar Square and going to bed in Times Square. And it was one of the best campaigns that I've ever worked on. And then from there, 9/11 happened. And so there were lots of cuts, if you can imagine, working on an airline. And I actually was one of the lucky ones and got to stay, but it was less interesting because we weren't doing the bigger campaigns. We were more doing, things like $99 to get to London and looking at terms and conditions. And so I decided that I wanted to do something else. And Berlin Cameron actually had started to reach out to me because they had won a ton of business. And one of the things that they won was the CocaCola account. And that was, obviously a really exciting account to go to work on. So I went.
That's huge.
Yeah, I decided to go there. And on my first.
And also, I just have to say, some of the Coca-Cola ads, I feel like, have been just some of the best ever. So that's very cool.
No, it was cool. We were doing the Real campaign, which was all about authenticity. And back in that day, so it was 2003, that was a relatively new concept about being real as a teen. And so really exciting work. And on my first day, actually, they said, you're also going to be working on Nestea. And I thought, amazing. I'm super excited. And you're going to go to Atlanta tomorrow. And I'm like, great. I'm really happy to do that. You're going to meet the client. So I went off to Atlanta, 1-day trip, supposedly. And I get to Atlanta and they were like, so this is a 5-day session. and you'll be here all week. And I was like, I didn't bring any underwear. I have nothing. And that's really been how I started my career at Berlin Cameron, but really how it is in a lot of ways. And it's fly by the seat of your pants. It changes every day, but that's one of the reasons why I love it so much.
That's amazing. And can you tell me sort of what that's been like? Obviously, the past year sort of flipped everything upside down for so many people. I mean, how has that shifted with less travel, and how have you had to sort of shift your strategy at Berlin Cameron?
Yeah, we went fully remote on March 7th, I believe it was. And we were actually so productive and worked really well. And I have to say that working remotely isn't something that I ever actually believed in before this. When people would say to me, "Oh, I need to work remote," I admit that I would roll my eyes in the back of my head and think, "Oh, they're going to get nothing done." And I would always come to the office because it's how I thought that if I'm there, that people will see me there and they will get their work done. But I was so wrong. People deserve the trust, and people do deserve the trust. And we discovered that we're so productive that we made a very early call to stay remote. And it's one of the things, within the WPP family, there's not a lot of companies that have done that. And I think deciding very early has been a good preparation, because we were able to look at tools, able to look at different things that would make us a better company culture overall. And one of those tools is called 15.5. It's a daily check-in weekly check-in with employees. And that's been a great way to keep up on the pulse with, everyone's mental energy at this time, which is it's an incredibly hard time. We have a mentorship program. We have something called Care Trees, in which you have two different branches, and you can just call them and talk to them about your favorite Netflix show, or what's going on in your life or the work you're doing, and really trying to establish programs that keep us connected to each other, even though we're all over the place.
It's amazing that you have been able to sort of shift your strategy. And I love that you're one of the first companies to go fully remote, because I definitely shared that same concern. Even when I was first started, being remote, I don't know, I'm someone who sees everyone working around me and gets really inspired to continue working. And so I remember the first few weeks was sort of like, what am I going to do? Am I ever going to get anything done? And now I feel, more productive than ever. So
yeah,
it's interesting to see how we've all sort of shifted at how we work. And I think it's great that you all are supporting that longer term.
Yeah, it's like a trust economy, and now people deserve that trust. They've worked so hard in this past year with so many other factors and things going on in their lives, and we've actually done really well as a company. So people deserve to have that benefit going forward, and we actually have the best of both worlds. And being a part of WPP, we can access office space at the various offices across the country. So we're very lucky to have both if we need it. And we'll see as the world evolves. But, I'm really excited to, really think about being at the forefront of this, and actually trying to develop and retain this culture going forward.
Absolutely. And I want to sort of jump back into your story about how you were talking about how your first job was what really got you passionate and inspired about working with women, supporting women, advocating for women. Was there any stage before that that you knew that that was sort of where you wanted to head in terms of your career path, and in terms of the almost extracurriculars you get involved in, or was it really that aha moment in that first job?
Actually not. No, it was really that aha moment in that first job. I had a really great example of a working mom, and I never really even understood the trials and tribulations of the working woman until I got there myself. My mom was the kind that never complained, always made it seem easy. Still to this day, I'm like, how does she do everything and still write a thank you note? I have no time to write a thank you note. I'm sorry, mom. And I'm so in trouble for it. But so those examples, I honestly didn't understand until I got into the working world. And I think working at Berlin Cameron was another way of me seeing it. We were actually in the press of being a boys club, and it was a very dominant boys culture. Most of the employees were men, and I talked to some of the women there about they felt that they weren't getting some opportunities. And I think that, as I really liked some aspects of the culture, and the fact that it wasn't a box around your position. You didn't have to just go work on Coca-Cola. You could work on that, work on other things. You also had the chance to do new business. You could do the company Christmas party. There were so many other aspects of the job there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the reasons which I stayed. And then the thought that I could potentially change things one day, in really thinking about ways in which to, bring more women to the company, lead the company as a woman, and then support female founded businesses as well.
Can you tell us a little bit about LLShe, which is sort of a perfect depiction of your influence on the company?
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how things like you don't plan, it kind of serendipitously happens in your life. And actually, my a very close friend of mine asked me for a referral on some designers because she was doing a startup, and could I recommend some people? And so I started to look into my database and who could I connect her to. And I thought, well, why aren't we doing this work ourselves? Like, isn't there a way that
Mm-hmm.
we can think about, helping these smaller based companies and building our credentials at the same time? And so we worked with her to do all the branding of her company. And then she referred us to the next person, and that person referred us to the next person. And all of a sudden, it was like this world that we were very deeply entrenched in. And this is about 5 years ago. And we absolutely loved it. I mean, it was something that we were doing more on the side, but we all got so passionately involved in the companies, and not just from like a branding or content or communications perspective, but everything. Like, who could we connect
Mm-hmm.
them to? How could we help them succeed? And that became a thing for us. And now, we've been able to use some of those case studies to sell to big brands, and start to work with things like Procter and Gamble and their secret pay equity work, Number 7 beauty brand with Walgreens, and and many other clients that have seen the work that we've done for these amazing female founders and how we've helped them to change the game, and we've been able to build a business around it.
It sounds like, this has been an amazing opportunity to apply your connecting skills. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about being a master connector, this term that I believe you came up with, right?
No, actually, a great
Okay.
woman and a fellow master connector. In fact, my computer is on one of her books right now. It's called The Lost Art of Connecting. Her name is Susan
Okay.
McPherson, and she's an amazing master connector. But I didn't meet her until later in my connecting days. And it's actually something that I didn't realize I was doing all the time, but it's definitely
Mm-hmm.
the way in which my brain works. When I first meet a person, it's like, okay, this woman is entering into my world. How can I help them? And how can I
Mm-hmm.
connect them to help them even further? It's the first thing I think about. And like neurons are firing, and I'm thinking about this web in which, that I've created, and helping them is like super exciting to me. And where that connection might go feels like it could potentially be magic, and it's
Mm-hmm.
maybe like matchmaking, right? That, you
Yeah.
think to yourself when you've sent someone out on a maybe potential blind date, like, where could this end up? And that's the same thing I
Mm-hmm.
think about in terms of women, is like, where could this end up? Could it end up with a friendship? Because that's incredibly important. Could it end up in a partnership, a business relationship? And so I was doing this all the time, but not really realizing it. And I think also I'm an only child. And so for me, the value of my connections is incredibly important to me, because I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have them immediately baked into my family. I had my parents, and we were an incredible unit of three, and I love them dearly. But I didn't have that sister or brother support system that was already there.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think I've always looked to build that web around me to make sure that I had those people that were really close, that understood me from, way back when, and all of that. And so one day I was on the elliptical machine, which is where I think I come up with some of my best ideas. And I was working out, and I was thinking, hey, it's the start of Women's History Month, and this is 2019. What could I do to
Mm-hmm.
actually give back this month? And what am I
Mm-hmm.
doing already? And I thought, well, what if I connected 4 women a day and made that something? And every
Mm-hmm.
weekday I did that. And so I tweeted it from the elliptical. I'm like, well, this is a thing. I've told everyone that I'm doing it. And I did it. And it was amazing, actually. I found that I met more people, I expanded other people's networks, and it really was impactful, the feeling that came out of it. And so that next May, I invited other women to join me. And I think I had about 30 women that month. And then by the
Mm-hmm.
end of the year, I did another program where we had, I think about 100 women join us. And then this year we're doing it a little differently where we're doing what I call connections challenges. And we did one
Mm-hmm.
in the fall of 2020 to help Gen Z girls and help them on their career paths. And we had 150 conversations with young girls, and now we're doing one to connect women who have lost their jobs in the She session. And we have 120 women and about 100 mentors. And I'm still looking to match some women, but it's been an incredible endeavor. And something that I wouldn't have even kind of expected came out of it,
Mm-hmm.
which I find really interesting, is we've also had these power hours for the women. So everything from interview skills to how to do your LinkedIn profile to how to think about your finances to how to tell your story. And through those sessions, these women have connected with each other on the
Mm-hmm.
common bond of what they're going through. And they talk to each other all the time. They support each other. And it's not something I thought about going in when I developed the program, but something that's been really amazing for them. And it's really special to know that they have each other, and then they have this support tool to help them move forward.
Absolutely. And what a powerful group it sounds like you've started. And you mentioned this She session. Can you tell everyone a little bit more about sort of what that is and really the impact of the last year?
Yeah, we're in the first recession that's affecting women more than men. And women have been leaving their jobs at 4 times the rate of men. And with the job losses are, I think, still having way more women out of work than men. We're looking to see 30 years of gains that we've made as women be erased, and the pay gap could increase by
That literally
5%.
breaks my heart
I know it's
as you
it's
say that.
awful. And one of the reasons is caretaking, right? Women are looked to be the
Hmm.
caretakers first, and I think that this has highlighted that in many different ways. So maybe that's a good thing that's going to come out of that there will be changes from a policy level made with the Marshall Plan
Hmm.
for moms, and maybe universal childcare, and maybe actually, women getting paid to be caretakers. So I think
Hmm.
that there's many strides that we're making and conversations in the household that weren't happening about all the unpaid labor of women. The fact that, like, when you look at the fridge, like, most of those things have been put in there either by you or that you've instructed, your
Hmm.
partner to put there in the fridge, right?
Right.
And all of those things that you're just taking on yourself. So how do you figure out the balance of the household, and you have those conversations differently than you were before? And why is women's time, treated differently than men's?
Hmm.
Men's time is treated very finite. Oh, they need time to rest, versus women, women's time is looked at like, oh, they have infinite time for other people. And, women's time should be looked at just the same, if not more special than men's. So I think there's a lot of good that's coming out of this awareness.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people are stepping up to really help women get back to work and figure out what they need in terms of how to do that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I mean, what can I do? What can everyone who's listening do, whether they're male, female? How can we get involved to sort of prevent, the 30 years being undone of all the progress we've been able to make so far?
Yeah, and I think it's, helping to make sure that the women that you're working with are supported in the workplaces that you're advocating for your workplaces, even at a younger age, to have the right policies in place to support women instead of like be in the way, right? And I think that
Hmm.
that's really important. And I think more flexible work schedules are going to make a huge difference. So helping to advocate for those things, and then connecting women, right? Like back to what we talked about with Connect for Women, how can we connect women to the right opportunities for them in order to, keep them in jobs that they're passionate about, find them the
Hmm.
right homes. And, I think in any way that you can do that, and I think you already are doing that through your podcast, and elevating women's stories is an incredibly important thing.
So, I want to come back to this term master connector, as I feel like this is sort of the answer, like you're saying, is to just continue to help make these connections and to, you know, connect internally, whether that's helping elevate women at the company you're at, or whether that's, finding new women to join your company. Can you give us like a mini boot camp or like quick top 3 tricks and tips to be a master connector or to, start working on some of those skills to get better at it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's when you meet someone new, it's about thinking about how you could connect them within the network that you already have. So, what are their interests? Who are the other people in your network that have those similar interests? What do they love to do? What's their purpose? Like, where are they striving to get with their career? Do you know someone that's already there in that career that you could potentially connect them to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's about helping women, and you are doing this to know their story. Did you know that today
Mm-hmm.
is National Tell a Story Day?
I did not know that.
It is. It's 427. And it's very true. Like women don't like ever think about their story to begin with. And I
Mm-hmm.
think especially at a junior level in our careers, no one says like you should be thinking about your story and how you bring that into work and how important that actually is. It wasn't until I think I was 20 years into my career and someone said, maybe 15. And someone said to me, you really need to craft your own story. It's not just about the support and amplification that you give for others. It's actually about your own point of view now. And I was like, oh shit, like I don't, my own point of view, like I have to have one. Like I can't just
Yeah.
amplify or everyone around me. And I think if somebody had told me that that was like something that I needed to do at an earlier age, that I would have spent a lot more time like thinking about that and the different steps and progressions in my career and
Mm-hmm.
how that played in. And it plays in so many ways. It plays in sales. If you're able to connect to people through your story, it plays in the way in which people want to connect with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it really is so important. So knowing and owning your story and being able to tell it is hugely important. And so, I think in any way that you can advocate for that and help people to learn about that and start to talk about it, we really need to help women do that.
Yeah, I think it can be scary sometimes, especially in the earlier stages of your career, because it's kind of like, well, wait, I haven't done all these things yet. So do I really have that story to tell? But I like that you're saying at any stage you have this story and you just need to work on figuring out what it is and, where you want to take it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think knowing earlier that like that's an important aspect of you and actually thinking about where you want to go as part of that, it really helps. All those different little factors that start to lead up in those different little moments, it makes it easier to connect to them. With being an only child, my drive for connection to,
Mm-hmm.
working in a agency that was devoted to women to then changing an agency to make it devoted to women, right? Like, and connecting all those dots and to me to be able to tell the story outwardly and share that because it's important for others to hear.
In addition to working on, telling your story and getting better at sort of seeing that narrative, are there any other sort of skills that you feel have helped you become successful in your career that you could share or give some advice on how others can practice those?
Yeah, I think it's about your presence, which goes back to the story, right? And, really kind of having that presence in a room. I think it's about owning a certain amount of information. So, one of the things that someone told me to do is like, if you're an expert in something, you will always be invited to the meeting that, something that the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the meeting doesn't have. So, at first in my career, it was like the competitive knowledge of the category, right? I knew everything about what every other airline was doing because
Mm-hmm.
that's why they needed to bring me to the meeting, is because if they didn't have those answers, they could be made look bad, right? So
Mm-hmm.
really like getting deep into those sources. And I think too, mentorship is really, really important, and finding those people that you connect to, right? And not forcing a mentorship, but finding people throughout your career that you feel that you connect to and that you want to maintain, and thinking about those as two-way relationships. Giving back to your mentor just as much as they give you is hugely important. Also,
Yeah.
keeping them updated too in your career as you progress, right? And those people are going to be on your cheering squad throughout it, and you want to make sure that you're maintaining those relationships. So I think those things are really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's easy sometimes to only network and reach out. I've talked to someone at least, I think, on the podcast about this, but it's easy to reach out when you need something. And I like what you're saying about just staying in touch each step. So it doesn't really feel like you're only contacting people with an ask, but also, sharing what you've been able to accomplish, likely with the help of their mentorship.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you definitely want to connect with people before you need something, because once you need something, it's so much harder to make the connections. You're not your natural self. You're
Mm-hmm.
asking of people, and when you've already built a foundation of connections that you've, helped or, been connected to for a long time, it's going to be that much easier to, if something happens to you, to get what you need. I mean, I try everyone who reaches out to me on LinkedIn, salespeople aside. So everyone who is like, I would love to chat with you about your career or whatever. I always talk to them, and I always try to have that initial conversation. And sometimes I have to admit, I feel like, oh, I'm so tired today. I don't feel like having this conversation. And and then I have it and I feel so energized by it. And, just being able to learn something about someone and really understand and how I can help them, it's really been a rewarding aspect of the Connect for Women program and all of the work that I've done to date.
How can people get involved in Connect for Women, whether they're looking to, get mentorship or be a mentor? What's the best way?
I have a website. It's connect and then for the number and women.com. And right now we're finishing up this She Session program. And I think we'll have something else in the fall. So looking to what's the next iteration of this, but you can apply to be a mentor, because I actually have 20 women who are left unconnected, or we're not actually taking mentees right now because we've had so much demand with the mentees. But there's
Mm-hmm.
also a Young Connectors program, and that's on the website as well, where you can apply into, and they have a Slack channel and they have events as well. And it's run by an awesome woman named Emma Camphor. And she just brought it to me over LinkedIn. Actually, she reached out and said, like, hey, I'd love to bring this program to Gen Z and make it available to them. Would you be open to that? And I was like, yeah, cool, you're in. So she started that, and you can join that if you're interested in connecting to Gen Z women,
That's great.
other Gen Z women.
That's great. I'll link the website when I post this episode as well, so anyone listening can, get involved if interested, which
Awesome.
I'm sure many will be. I want to jump topics a little bit, because in 2020 you were named Working Mother of the Year by She Runs It. Can you tell us a little bit about how you manage work and, being a mom and have that work-life balance, especially in, this new working from home world?
Yeah. It's not easy, definitely. And it definitely has its challenges. We actually moved across country in the pandemic to change our family life a bit. We were in New York City in the height of the pandemic, and I don't think we realized how hard it was until we left. And my boys are getting bigger and smellier and louder every day. I love them very much, but they take up a lot in all of those senses. And so we moved to California, and it's been a really great shift for us in terms of their lifestyle and sports and, connecting them to that. But in terms of balance, I don't do it well enough, to be honest. And it's something that I think about often, because I know that what I do badly is modeled for others, and that they think that that's how they have to be. And I'm very specific to everyone about their boundaries, and it's okay to have boundaries, and I'm very accepting of those boundaries for other people, and I haven't been as much so for myself. And I think it's something that I definitely need to work on getting better at. um, I have a great husband who does a lot of the lifting in the house, and I'm very lucky to have that support system. And then our help, right? Like, we have had amazing nannies who are a part of our family that enable, me to work as much as I need to. But it's about being there at every sports game. And my parents were very much there for me at all my games, and, present and doing those late night catches to help them train. And that's where I can be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, in terms of balance, I definitely need to get better, but there's at least being home with them. I have, those abilities to kind of run out of the room, check in on what they're doing, and, be a part of their day-to-day life, which I probably wasn't so before.
Well, I think it's honestly really inspiring to see someone who's in such a important leadership role, prioritizing, still working, still continuing on with her career, helping other women with their careers, and also still, being a mom and enjoying those moments with your kids, like you said, at sporting events. So thank you for sharing that with us.
No, thank you. And it's always, we're always our hardest critics, and I'm definitely my hardest critic on all of the stuff I do. And, so sometimes we have to step back and say to ourselves, like, what would my best friend say about this? Would she say that I'm doing a great job? That's how I should think about it versus all of the thoughts and things that go through our heads on a day-to-day basis. Because I think as women, sometimes we hold ourselves up to these impossible standards. And, I know I do that for myself. So how can we release those just a little bit every day?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think, we have to acknowledge I'm not a mom yet, but being a mom, it sounds like it has so many different challenges and is such a full-time job in and of itself. So, even just figuring out and, working on finding the right way to balance that, I think is, it's no easy feat for sure.
Yeah, no, it isn't. Then the challenges are ones that you would never expect and that no one ever talked to you about. Like these crazy things that you're like, wow, I can't believe this is my particular challenge. But no,
Yeah.
it is a great learning. And honestly, being a mom has made me, so much more vulnerable and authentic. And, I'm maybe a master connector, but I definitely had a lot of trouble with like armor before having
Mhm.
kids. And like once I had kids, and it was so impossible to do things perfectly that like I finally let go of a lot of that. And it was so much easier for me to connect with other moms because of that. It was so much easier for me to connect at work because of it. So it's really taught me so much. And, even being vulnerable with the kids sometimes, like it's great because they can see that we're not perfect. And hopefully that
Mhm.
even though they're still so hard on themselves, it's like, I don't want them to
Yeah.
have those expectations that I have on myself.
Yeah, I think also, especially with social media and sort of everyone showing the highlight reel of their
Yeah.
lives of like, let me show you these perfect pictures, as opposed to, what you're talking about, that real vulnerability of like, no, we all deal with challenges and sometimes we mess up and we're
Yeah.
not perfect, and it's okay to acknowledge that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell them that all the time. I don't know if they listen, but I tell them.
Yeah. Well, my last question for you is my favorite question. I ask this on every episode. What do you feel is one of your greatest accomplishments?
Honestly, I think it's been this year and all the work around this She Session, and not only the work in my personal life with the Connect for Women program, but the work that I did with the brand Number Seven and the She Session campaign that we had with them. We did the nation's largest job summit, and actually with the Female Quotient and Sunshine, two amazing media partners, and then Fortune as well, and really helped women to take back their jobs. And my son was asking me the other day, what would you rather do, create Super Bowl commercials or do something like this? And I said, any day, hands down, I would rather make a difference and, change women's lives. And I think that being able to do that in my day-to-day job has, just driven this new level of excitement and passion for the work. And so the more kinds of clients that we can have in that direction and the more work that I can do in that way, it really fuels me and excites me. And I think personally, like anyone would want me on that team because I get so passionately involved in it and, helping women to change their lives.
I could not love that more. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's such an honor to have this conversation with you and hear about all the work you've done. And you're such a boss lady, and it's just been so great chatting with you. So thank you for taking the time to be on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Olivia. It was really great to meet you, and I hope you'll join Young Connectors or be a mentor or mentee. I think you could be either side because I think sometimes I want to be mentored by someone who's younger than me to really like help me to think differently about things. So either way, we'd love to have you.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Boss Ladies. Check back next week for a new episode. Visit us at www.bossladiespodcast.com for more information about the show, or follow us at Boss Ladies Podcast on Instagram. Rate, like, and follow the show on all of your favorite podcast platforms.